Welcome back. It is another Workshop Wednesday. Today's topic, actually the category first, is a strategy session. We rotate different categories. Each week do a strategy session or a getting started topic, a beyond basics topic, or maybe just an updates. Today it's all about strategy. So it's for those of you who are maybe not the implementer of your team, but you are responsible for using some of this stuff. So today we're going to talk about using Google Analytics channel reports to guide your own marketing strategy. Of course, before we get too much into this, welcome. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io. And maybe you found us through some of the podcasts and talks that I've been on, maybe through some other platforms that feature our content like Digital Marketers, the Excel Institute, Social Media Examiner, or countless others around the web. Maybe you are already a member over at measurementmarketing.io. However you found us, we love that you're here and welcome back. Our job is to help people just like you learn how to use tools like Google Analytics and Tag Manager and Data Studio. And again, if you're a strategy person, maybe you're not directly responsible for using tools like Tag Manager, but you do need to be able to work with the reports and figure out what everything means. And when it comes to Google Analytics, let's face it, that can be a little bit daunting. So today we're going to talk about using the channel reports and analytics and hopefully make it just a little bit more useful for you. Now, part of how we do that is by going through these measurement marketing pillars. There's actually 5 keys to measurement marketing. The first is planning, thinking through what questions I'm trying to answer, what information will I need to get those answers, and ultimately what actions will I take based on those answers. We're going to talk about that today. We will also talk a little bit about the build. Now, as a strategy person, you probably aren't doing a lot of the build out yourself. You're working with somebody else in your team who's doing that. But I think it's important to know a few things that analytics can do so that you can help to make that build better as a strategy person. And of course, the reports. We'll be dealing with the reports. I'll show you those too today. Now, once you have your reports, you start to use them, you start to understand what they're telling you, you can then start to forecast your near future, and then ultimately you measure against your forecasts. That will tell you what's working, what's not, so you know what to optimize. And that's how the whole framework comes together. Now, with all of these trainings, every Workshop Wednesday that we do, one thing is what we ask you, which means one new skill that you practice, one new way of hearing something a little bit different that maybe you've heard it before, because it's so hard to do this work. And if you try to watch one of these trainings and you try to hang on to every little thing, it's pretty quick and easy to get overwhelmed, let's face it. And so when you do this one thing rule, we just focus on one new thing, one new idea, one new thing you can put into practice, one new skill that you now have, practice it, then come back, watch this video again. It's why we keep these workshops live. And so you can watch them again and then pick up another new one thing as you watch them. All right, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? Strategy session, using Google Analytics channel reports to guide your marketing strategy. Now, as we often do, we're going to go ahead and dive right in. This time, we're going to take a look at Google Analytics. And we're going to introduce you first because we're going to make the assumption that you are the strategy person on your team, and your job is not necessarily to get all of these numbers into Google Analytics. Now, as a strategy person, again, it doesn't mean that you don't use analytics. Of course you need to use analytics. You're going to want to be able to take a look at some of the reports in here. And so we're going to start to focus on these channel reports because maybe you've seen these before, but I want to point out some nuances and help you make these a little bit more useful. So they are under the acquisition section. Acquisition, again, is the reports that are all about where the users are coming from. So we click on acquisition, and then we go into all traffic, and underneath all traffic, we have the channels report. That's the one that we're going to focus on today. So we're going to go to where it says all channel or all traffic and then channels. Now, once we're in the channels report, I'm going to break this down a little bit. We're going to go through this default channel grouping. It always does this. It always gives you the default channel grouping, which essentially means this was the grouping that Google Analytics was born with. And it's good, but it's not great. And so I want to point out some of the things here that you may not realize might be going on. So most people jump in, they start using this report. And to some extent, that is useful because you can come in, you can see direct traffic, which is presumably traffic that is coming directly to your site. Organic search, which again, allegedly, is organic search, people from Google or Bing or Ask or Yahoo coming to your site. There's paid search, which allegedly is paid traffic coming to your site from the search engines. We've got email, which again, allegedly is email. Other, which is, it's not really sure, just other stuff comes through. Then there's referral traffic, social traffic, allegedly social media, and the display traffic, which is allegedly display ads. Now, you have all of these. And again, I keep saying this, presumably, allegedly, it's supposed to be because we don't know. Because you really don't have access to how these are defined. And that's the problem with the default channel grouping. Now, I'm going to show you very quickly how to read this report. And now that I've sort of poked holes into them, maybe you're not quite looking at what you think you might be looking at. I want to show you how to read this report, but then I want to show you how to actually fix some of that stuff too. So we're gonna keep that there for now. Just know that maybe this is like Google's best guess, but it also just not a fan of black box definitions. And so if I don't know how Google's defining this stuff, how do I know it's right? And that's really tough. So we're not going to make any assumptions on this. We're going to come back to how these are defined, but how this report is used is super important and will be the same. You're going to use this report over and over again. For now, I'm going to flip this to all goals because we're just going to define it against all results. We're going to call these generically results. But you would want to set up some sort of what we call the ACE model, which is awareness goals. You want to make sure you've got goals that measure when something has been completed, whatever that customer journey or process was, and you want to make sure you've measured goals that are engagement steps along the way. So you're seeing the journey that's actually happening. So you need to know when they're aware of the thing, which in our case, like with the Measurement Marketing Academy, this is when they're aware of the sales page. Here is when they've engaged with the cart. Here's when they've actually completed that journey, in this case, to purchase the program. So we measure these different stages. You should always set up ACE goals. If you are not familiar with that term, work with your builders, because if they're part of the Measurement Marketing Academy, they should be, and they should know all about the ACE goals that we'd ask you to set up. Otherwise, if you're a Toolbox member or any member actually of Google of Measurement Marketing Academy, just go into the Toolbox section and you'll see all about ACE goals there. You can always ask instructors as well. But for now, I'm going to tie it to goals because it's just a useful way of thinking. These are the results we're trying to measure, and then here are the different channels. And again, we'll come back to what defines these a little bit later on and how you can make these more useful. But the rest of this stuff is super useful. So here we've got acquisition. This is all about quantity, right? How many users am I getting? What type of users are they? So mostly total users are here, and then new users. All you're asking yourself is, does this make sense? And this is from a strategist perspective. Does it make sense in my marketing that mostly in this case, and this is for a measurementmarketing.io site, this is our site, our live production site. So is it useful to know that most new users are coming direct? In terms of this direct traffic. That is people that are, let's pretend this is correct. It's actually sending people directly to our site. Yeah, I guess it is, because a lot of people are coming to us new. They're looking for information about measurement marketing. They're coming to measurementmarketing.io because that is our company name, measurementmarketing.io. So we have a lot of direct traffic, and it makes sense. It's mostly new. Organic search, we see that drop off just a little bit, not too much, but a little bit. About 80%, 90% or so, it seems to be new traffic. So that still makes sense for search traffic because it's people looking for us and solving problems. They're looking for analytics courses or something like that, and they come across measurementmarketing.io or the Measurement Marketing Academy or maybe a blog post we've created. So it makes sense it's new users. Let's jump down to email. See how that drops down all of a sudden, 68 down to 38. Does it make sense that email is not bringing in as many new users? And of course it makes sense. Yes, people will forward emails around, and that's a way that a legitimate new user can come in. There's also different device types that will accidentally look like new users to Google. But again, I don't really care about the numbers because Google Analytics is not accurate. No measurement platform is accurate, by the way. It doesn't exist. We call it the A word at measurementmarketing.io because I don't believe in accuracy. It's not a thing, and you'll never find it. But it is useful still because we can look at the trends and the patterns. And that's really what we talk about when we look at these reports. The truth is in the trend. The power is in the pattern. Remember that. The truth is in the trend. The power is in the pattern. So here I can see mostly new users. I hear mostly new users. Here, mostly new users. Here, not mostly new users, right? It's a lot of returning users coming back. That's good to know. So email is a very different type of trend, a very different pattern. It breaks the pattern in these other things, which makes sense because that's how it's designed to work. So far, it's kind of the things that you can learn just in this acquisition. Now over here is an entirely different story, or maybe it's another chapter to the continuing story as we learn about our different channels. We say, okay, well, let's look at this direct versus organic versus paid search. So if I look at bounce rate, now this is a popular question I get. What's a good bounce rate? Here's the answer. There is no good bounce rate. There are bad bounce rates. So if you see your overall bounce rate, this number up here, if you start to see that, look in the single digits, there's probably an issue. You need to work with your team. There's probably an implementation issue. Something's broken somewhere because unfortunately you're probably not that popular. If it's incredibly high, where it's in the 90s all the time, there also might be an issue because you're probably not that unpopular either. But it's going to be somewhere in between, right? You're always going to be in double digits. You should never be in the single digits overall. Now, certain parts down here might be. Some parts might show 100%. That's okay. Some parts might show 0. That's okay. But if the overall does that, there's an issue. But what this is really telling you about, this whole behavior section here, what this is really telling you is the engagement of these different channels. So it's how engaged the audience is, right? So as we come through here, we say, okay, well, bounce rate, and again, I'm not really caring about the numbers, not really. It's truth is in the trend, power is in the pattern. What I'm looking at here is it's about the same as the site-wide. So it's like, okay, we're about average for our site. Here, the number of pages, about average, give or take. Here, time on page, about average. Now, keep in mind, they don't really spend 3 minutes and 43 seconds. That's not really what they're doing. It's just it's a ballpark measurement of time. That's how you think about it. And so what I'm really doing is not really caring about the number. I'm just looking at it's about the same as this one. These two are about the same. So I know that overall direct traffic operates about how the majority of the traffic on my site operates. Then I come down to organic search. Notice the difference. Organic search is actually a little lower than my overall. Again, I don't really care about the numbers specifically, but I'm looking at how much lower it is. And I go, well, that's, pretty good percentage lower. So it's like they're not, that means they're more engaged, because with bounce rate, the lower the better. So in this case, it shows me that they're more engaged. Organic traffic is more engaged. I can see that story continuing here because they see more pages than my average one does, and they stay around longer than my average does. Again, is it really 5 minutes? Probably not, but who cares? It's definitely more than this. That's what matters. It's almost double that. So I can see that they're definitely more engaged. So I know my organic search audience, organic traffic coming in, assuming this was correct, is actually more engaged. That's good to know. My paid search traffic, I can see a very different story in the opposite direction. So paid search traffic, typically that type of traffic is coming in to not, engage with your blog or learn more about your company and everything else. They're coming in to do something because there's an ad or some sort of push that brought them to your site. So in my case, it's the same. So I see an engagement where it's less than average, because remember, higher numbers mean there's more people leaving quickly. So I see that higher. But again, that makes sense because of the type of traffic it is. I see that they visit less pages. Still makes sense. Less pages than overall because it's the type of traffic. So it makes sense to me as a marketer that would happen, because it's not, this type of traffic is not designed to go visit a bunch of my pages on my site. I don't really want them doing that. They're here to, become a Toolbox member, which is not a lot of pages. They just sign up, or it's to purchase the Measurement Marketing Academy or something like that. So it doesn't require as much time in that visit. So this says to me it's okay, right? I see this is okay. Email traffic, I see again, it drops down. My bounce rate, really low. So they're highly engaged, which makes sense, but they're not seeing a lot of pages, and they're not sticking around as long as what organic is. So what can we guess from this? We can kind of go, well, organic search, they're clearly looking around. They're exploring my site. I think that's good. That's healthy. Maybe I can take advantage of some of that traffic, and we have to see if it's turning into results. We're not sure yet. We'll get there in a minute here. But it's definitely more engaged than my email audience is. They seem like they're coming for a specific purpose. Now, they're engaging. It's not like paid traffic. Paid traffic is a bunch of new people coming in. Email traffic doesn't bring as many new people, which makes sense because they're already on our email list coming in. So they're coming in for a very focused, specific purpose, but they are engaging, which is great. So that's just sort of an idea of how you can start to read this, and you can start to unlock the story that these numbers have for us. And again, I don't care. I don't think to myself, oh, email is a 30%, bounce rate. I don't think of that at all. What I think about is email is a lot less of a bounce rate. It's more engaged than our overall site. It's twice as engaged as paid traffic, right? Truth is in the trend, power is in the pattern. And as somebody in the strategy section, when you're trying to adjust your marketing strategy, this is what you look at. You don't care about 30% or 60%. What I care about is one is half as unengaged as the other, or one is twice as likely to leave as the other one, right? The engagement's not as good. So that's all I care about when I'm doing that. Now, let's move over to this final section, our favorite section, of course, because this is all about the results that are happening. So as I come in, I want to continue the story, right? Maybe this is like you're reading this book, which got chapters, and these chapters have different stories and story arcs, and we're trying to understand our channels and how they work to ask ourselves, does this make sense? And is there an opportunity to improve? So as I come through this direct, and I say, okay, users, new users, I've got, number coming through. It's a pretty good amount of traffic, seems to be about engaged on the average level, right? Not overly engaged, but not underperforming as well, just kind of on average. And then if I continue over, I can see goals coming through. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it to one particular goal that I do care about here, which is our lead, which is our toolbox. So I'm going to see, okay, how many people are becoming toolbox members? So if I see this, all of a sudden I'm looking for one specific result, and I can say, well, all of this traffic that's coming in, only 4% of it is converting to toolbox. So it is creating toolbox members, which is great, but only 4% of it's really doing its thing. So then I come through to organic search, and I say, okay, well, let's go look at our organic search traffic and I see it's highly engaged, so you would think, oh, well, more likely to cause a result, but it's not. It's about the same. Now, that's actually less than site-wide. Site-wide, I average about a 7% for this particular goal that I'm trying to achieve, in this case, to become a Toolbox member. But overall, both these traffic sources don't really perform that way. Why? Does that make sense? Yeah, for me, it kind of does. Because direct is coming in to explore about the company. They're coming directly to the company to do that. Organic search, they're clearly trying to solve a problem and they're exploring for a solution. So it makes sense. And there's a lot of distraction here. And they're definitely more engaged, which I like. This organic search is more engaged. And maybe, and here's the opportunity, maybe there is an opportunity for me to go back and figure out, okay, what are these different pages that they see? And then of those pages that they're coming into, can I maybe focus that a little bit better so they are more likely to achieve the goal I want them to achieve over here? Now, how do I know that a focus toward achieving that goal will even work? Well, look at paid search. So paid search, again, not as much traffic. It's a pretty decent amount. It's close, right? Not it's half as this, but it's almost that, right? So it's close. But you can see that it's not engaged, right? Not as engaged, right? Not as many pages, not spending as much time, but look at this. The engagement rate, 5 times as much, right? That's huge. So engagement rate's 5 times as much, more than twice, almost 3 times as much as what this is. That's really good for me to know. So that proves to me that I know this because we do our own marketing, of course, here. So I know that the paid search traffic is coming through, sending people to become a member. It's sending them with the intention of creating something. So if I do have somebody who comes back with a focus, then they are actually going to do that focus, right? They actually will come through and they'll be able to see that, which is good to me. That means, okay, organic search, which is performing just like a generic direct none right now, I probably have some room here where I might be able to change my organic search and I can focus that conversation that's happening on those blog pages, assuming that's what they're seeing, and I can get them to become a Toolbox member and maybe bump this up. Probably not to 20%, but can I get it to 10? Maybe, right? It's worth checking. It's certainly closer to the average of the site, and it should beat direct none. So that gives me some hope. Now again, email, notice this case, 0. Why? Well, email, they're already on our email list, so they're probably not signing up for to be on the email list again, right? To be on the Toolbox membership, because they already have that. So they're already a member. They don't need to create another membership. So that makes sense. This is going to come back and give us this. But this is how I would organize it, is I come through here and I'll go, okay, well, let's go see number of leads coming through. And I can see actually paid search is my number 1 with 20%. Other stuff, right? 18%. This is why I don't like the other. This is why I don't like this default channel grouping, because it's like, wow, let's actually bring in some decent traffic. It's about as engaged, maybe not, a little less engaged than my average site, but man, it's bringing in leads. It's my second highest thing with leads in this date range. Shouldn't it be more than just other? Like, shouldn't there be something other way I can define this? And the answer is yes, I should be. And this brings us back full circle. Now that we know kind of the story of how to read these reports, you can flip around the different results. The better you are at setting up your results, the better this report will work for you. But this default channel grouping, I can go back and say, okay, this is okay to a point, but this is kind of like a blurry version of channels. That's how I like looking at this. It's like Google's best guess. It's the default out-of-the-box setup, but it's a blurry version at best. So I'm going to show you something pretty cool. What we're going to do is we're going to go way down to conversions. I'm going to show you something that most people do not even know exists. We're going to go to multi-channel funnels under conversions. So conversions, all about the results. We go to multi-channel funnels, and then we go to assisted conversions. This is kind of a cool little report. So the assisted conversions report, right away, what you start to see is, oh, here's my default channel grouping. Kind of looks the same, lit up with different colors, but basically the same words. And then you've got all the different conversions. The difference is this one shows you assisted conversions and then the last click conversions. Whereas that other report that we were looking at in acquisition, all traffic, and then channels, this original one, what this is telling you is here are the results. Let's load up. There we go. Here are the results that are associated to this channel. It was the last known attributable channel. But that's it. The last known attributable channel. And this other one, when you come down to conversions and then you go to multi-channel funnels and you go to assisted conversions, this one says this is the last known attributable, but it also assisted in this one. So you start to get an additional story of how the channels are actually helping you. For example, maybe you've got a Facebook paid traffic campaign whose job it is to create leads, and then you have an email system that actually closes those leads. Well, email is always going to get credit for the sale, and Facebook never will, but it doesn't mean that Facebook's not valuable. In a report like this, you could see that. Now we're in this channel grouping report, this default one. And we still have that same problem. It's still kind of a blurry version of channels because we don't really know how it's defined. So what if there was a way that we could tell Google Analytics, here's how we want it defined? And there is, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to come through here to channel groupings, and we're going to say create custom channel grouping, which you can completely do from scratch. I'm going to show you a reason to do that in a second. But first, I want you to do this. See where it says copy MCF channel grouping template? That's what we're going to do. It's going to copy this original one. So we're going to go here to copy it. And when it does that, here's what's cool about this. You can now edit it. And when you edit it, it tells you what it meant by display. Here's what display means. Display means the ad distribution exactly is content, or the medium is display or CPM. So if you've been putting in stuff like display or CPM in your UTM mediums, or if that's how your vendors are putting in their content, it's automatically showing as display. And you might not know that, but that's what happens. So if you want to change that, you can come in and you can change that. And you don't have to use regex. You can use simpler terms if you're not using regex. You can say contains this, contains that, whatever. So you can adjust this however you want. Or you can get rid of the whole thing entirely. You can just click it out and be like, I don't want to use display anymore. So you can gone, no more display. How is paid search set up? You can come in here and say, okay, paid search, and this is interesting. The medium has to be CPC or PPC, has to be one of those two things. And again, you could say, this is the exact way of doing it. I could say contains CPC or contains PPC. This is another way of doing that. So don't get too confused about this regex stuff if that's not your cup of tea. You can just spell it out. Contains this or contains that, or it does not contain that, right? So you could do all sorts of cool things with this stuff. But you basically tell Google Analytics a story of here's what I want you to define for paid search. And then it says ad distribution does not match content, right? So it doesn't match that. Now this is a little black box because you probably don't have really control over this. So what you could do instead is you could change it because again, it's important for you to understand how these numbers get there. So you know that when you're looking at a number that you can trust it and you understand the story that's happening back there. So if I said source and I could say contains Google, because that would be a search engine that I might be doing some paid search on. So cool, if it's coming from Google, maybe you're doing Bing too. So you could do Bing. And so it's like, oh, these are the two search engines. And as long as it's Google CPC or Google PPC or Bing CPC or Bing PPC, then I'm going to put it into this channel called paid search traffic coming, paid traffic coming from search engines. That's how you can define it. And then once you do that, so you're just basically rewriting this definition and you're creating your own. So it says copy of here. You can change this. This is like my awesome channel settings. So let's my awesome channels. Let's just do that. My awesome channels. So there's paid search, and then we'll say, you can change it, say Google or Bing. Maybe that's what you do. And you click on save. Of course, you can change the colors, whatever else. So there's paid search. And I just saved that whole thing. So if you have this now that I have that set out, and I just did that one, but you can keep doing that for everything. If I do that one, and it says here, my awesome channels now, if I click onto this, it switches it. So there's my awesome channels, and there's paid search, Google, Bing. So and now I've defined that. I know what that means. And this is important as a strategist. You do not want to make what we call dangerous assumptions. We don't want to assume that paid search is everything that we think paid search is when in reality it's not. And we're making assumptions because then you make bad decisions off of those assumptions, right? Dangerous assumptions. So instead, come in here and define your own channel reports. Now, how do we go back? So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go to the awesome channels. I want to be able to edit it. How do I do that? Not the easiest thing in the world from here, unfortunately. So what you need to do is you go to admin, and then we're going to, underneath the view that you were in, this is the Google Analytics view, you will notice down here where it's these multi-channel funnel settings and custom channel groupings and all that fun stuff, where you can click through here. These are your user settings of what you were setting up as your channel report. So if we click in custom channel, you will see my awesome channels shows up here. So now I can click into this, and that's where it is. So I know this is a little complicated, and as a strategist, you're like, I don't want to have to use analytics to this point, but this particular report can be really useful when it comes to this. So it's important you know where it is. And especially when it says like other advertising. What does other advertising mean? It means something that matches regex of all of this stuff, but wasn't paid search. That's what this means. And these kind of work in order too. So it's first it tries to fit them in the paid search bucket, then it tries to fit the traffic in the other advertising bucket. Then it says, well, maybe it's organic search and puts it in that bucket. If it doesn't fit, it goes in the social network bucket. How does it define a social network? By default, it says social source referral equals yes. Again, that's hard because you don't really have access to that. But then it says, or medium equals social social network. Now, I know people who, when they UTM their Facebook ads, they call it Facebook social. So all of that stuff is coming in the social channel, which is fine if you know that that's paid traffic. But if you think that all the paid traffic is coming through this paid search traffic, it's not, right? So I would create a whole separate one that's paid social. And then you have one that's like organic social, right? And so you can do that by coming through here. Again, how does it define, let me cancel out of this, how does it define email? So if we click through here, click the edit, it defines emails, medium matches email. For us, that actually works because that's how we do it. But if you said newsletter for your email, maybe you do email/newsletter, which again, I think is a bad idea. I don't think it's the best way to do UTMs, but I see a lot of companies do that. If they do email/newsletter as their medium for UTM, none of that shows up in the email channel. And so if you've been making, this is a problem, because if you've been making all those decisions based on emails coming through when it's really not, it's a challenge. So I love the idea, and this is what I want for you. This is the 2 big wins I want for you. The 2 big things from this workshop. Number 1, realize channels reports back there and how to read it. So, because it is telling you a story, as long as you understand truth is in the trend, and we kind of go through that. But the second thing is you can define your channels, and you should. Do not use the default channel report because you just don't know how it was built and how it's defining itself. It's not to say that it's entirely not useful, but doing it on your own and creating the actual definition based on how your company measures traffic and how your company is creating UTMs and how your company gets traffic is better. It's 1,000 times better. There's no contest. Now, the other thing that you can do back here, I wanted to show you just kind of another reason, this is our default. You can always create new channel groupings from this section too, but let's pretend you wanted to know, and this is popular, a thing about retargeting. I want to know my retargeting traffic and how my retargeting traffic is working versus maybe my cold outreach traffic. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here to this little channel report. I'm going to create a brand new one from start. So what I'm going to do is this is blank now. So I'm going to say cold versus retargeting. And I think this will actually work for us because we should be doing this. This is a good chance for me to test it. See if my marketing team is up to speed on their UTMs. So we put cold traffic, and this is specific to paid. So this is, I'm going to know as I'm doing this particular channel report that I'm only measuring my paid traffic. And so I'm separating, I'm telling analytics, go into all of my traffic, pull out my paid traffic, and anything that is UTM'd in the content section that says cold, then is cold traffic. You can see this is different ways that we do it. We put the word cold in there, so we know it's cold traffic. And then I'm going to put that for blue because it's cold. So then, look at me with the color coding. Now I'm going to add another one in there. So we're going to define another channel. And this one I'm going to call retargeted traffic. Or I could call it warm traffic, whatever. I'm going to call it retargeted because that's technically what it is, because we put in there retarget in here. So we put retargeting is the word that we're using. So I can just do, retarget. As long as it contains retarget, here's some examples of something that's already in there that contains retargeting. It's how I know that it's going to work. So it's like, cool, ad content contains retarget, and I'm going to make this a little bit warmer. It won't be red hot, but let's make it orange because it's kind of warmer traffic. Okay, so we've got our cold traffic. I got my warmer traffic because it's being retargeted, and I can click on done at this point. So now what happens? I have my cold versus retargeting. Then I will have, because I don't have anything else, there will be an other section. That's how these others, you see this in the gray right down here? This others, that's what it is. It's like, well, it didn't fit this, so it was other. That's what's about to happen here. So I have my cold versus retargeting, but that's okay because I can create a channel, a custom group of channels that are designed to answer very specific questions. They don't have to always be company-wide on all my traffic. So I can say, what's my cold versus retargeting? So I know this is just basically my my traffic that's coming through with Facebook as an example. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to pull up a larger traffic source. Hopefully we have a little bit back here. And again, we don't do a ton of paid ads. I don't know how well this will work, but there you go. So I've got my cold traffic that brought some people through, and I can see cold traffic assisted in 4 sales. It was responsible for or results. I don't know. This is just sales. You can define that up here under the conversion. So I'm going to take that and say, keep all my goals. We'll just say any goal at all in this case. But here it's assisted in 4 goals. It completed 3 goals on its own. My retargeted traffic assisted in 17, which means something else happened after that, right? Assisted in 17 conversions. But look at this, responsible for 107. So now can I see how well my cold traffic versus retargeting traffic is at causing certain results? 100% I can. And honestly, the retargeting traffic is supposed to be getting more results, so this tells me the right story. And if I do a ton of paid traffic, it's great. Now remember, this other is in here. This is like all the other traffic sources, but I don't really care, right? Because I'm not asking questions around those. I'm asking questions around these. But maybe just maybe, I want to add an email. So how do we adjust this? I can't go back here and do it because there's no way to edit from here. So hopefully you're going, yeah, Mercer, go back to admin. You're right. And then what do? And you come down to custom channel grouping, and guess what we're going to see there now? Cold versus retargeting. So now I'm going to add another one. So I come in here and I say email, because I'm going to do my email. And I'm going to say, in this case, we do medium. That's how we actually do define it. This is what I recommend too. Medium, which is the type of traffic. That's all that medium means. It's the type of traffic. In this case, the type of traffic is email traffic. And we're going to call that green. So we're going to hit done there. We click save. And now I can go back to that exact same report, my multi-channel funnels, assisted conversions. It's a very little known report. I really like it because it does show you the assisted stuff, but mostly I like it because you can do these cool little adjusting your channels here, which is super cool. And you can start to see a bigger story. So now we see there's my cold traffic, which, brought in some things, which is fine. Retargeted traffic started causing some results, but really email traffic kicked it in, right? And we can see what the email traffic is doing for whatever the result is. And of course, you would come up here with your conversion types, and you wouldn't do all goals like I'm doing. I'm doing that as an example, but you would do a specific thing that you're trying to get done, right? So whether it's a certain thank you page or a purchase that's happening, your e-commerce reports, or whatever it is, you would actually see the results as you're coming through here. And they will all change based upon that result that you're actually measuring for. And you can see, is the traffic working the way it's supposed to? Because that's what the channels report is really good at helping with, is these generic channels working as they're supposed to. And before, without using this channels report, you couldn't see, like, show me all my retargeting traffic and how's that working against cold traffic and how's that working for email. You couldn't do that before. But now that you know about the channels report, now that you know you can create your own channels report, and now that you know the difference between, the assisted conversions report, which kind of shows you what it assisted in, and it also got this stuff, but it really got this stuff. This is the stuff it really cares about, but it also helped with this. That's useful to know. And it's very different than what you would see back here in this channels report, where you go back and you see your default grouping, right, as you come through here. Now notice, you also have these now. My awesome channels, so I can come through here and I can change it for this and see it just, if you do like this report, the way that we read it initially, you can still do that, right? You come back here and you can put in, this particular report. We'll give it a second to load up here. And by the way, if this ever happens to you, sometimes it's just helpful to refresh. Sometimes it's helpful to give it a chance. I gave it a chance. It's the new one because we did paid search Google, but pretend that this My Awesome Channels is the one that we actually went through all of these and redefined them the way that we understood it. Now you would actually be able to trust the numbers a little more that are back here in the story that's being told. And of course, I go to My Awesome Channels. I said cold versus retargeting. Note, and this is also cool. I created these channels right now live with you here. And all the data is still there. So it sort of retro backs and recalculates all of these, which is really cool. But you have to do it the way that I showed you, which is coming into the conversions, assisted conversions, and then create a new one there. Or go into your admin if you want. Go into your admin, you go into custom channel, and then you new channel grouping. Same thing. It'll pull up that same sort of report, and you can build it here too, and it'll show up. But it's really cool what's possible back there when you get into channel reports and realize. And this is, I think, the key for a lot of people, realizing that you can create your own and that you should, because you don't know how it was defined. So I don't like the black box stuff. When they're like, hey, we'll define this for you. I'm like, yeah, but what if you did it wrong? What if I did it wrong accidentally? Like that social stuff, or like email is a big one. So many people see email and it's not. It turns out it's not email. So you define it and you just basically say, cool, I appreciate your opinion as to what the channel should be, and are a good example of channels, but I'm going to create my own as a company based on how we measure and manage our traffic. And then you create your own. Plus you can create channel reports that answer specific questions. Like, what's my cold traffic versus retargeting versus, in our case, email? Because that's the only things you care about. And you want to see how much of that traffic you're getting, what the results of that traffic are. And yeah, you got other traffic, but who cares, right? So just some cool things that you can do with the channels report to obviously understand the story that's happening back here so that you can adjust and improve your own marketing results. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring this one to a close. What was your one thing? Was it the fact that channel reports even exist? Because that is a lot for a lot of people. Like, they didn't know you could even do that. Was it, and I'm hoping this was it, the fact that maybe, just maybe, you should create your own channel report back there, because that's the only way you really know how that channel is being defined, is to create your own. So super important point. You got to go create your own channels. Or maybe it's just reading the story. Now, regardless, if you're kind of looking at this going, man, we're not a member of measurementmarketing.io yet, but maybe we should be, because these people think about this a little bit differently. You would be right. Just go to measure.tips/getacademy. You will learn all about something we call the Measurement Marketing Academy. There are multiple levels. There's a starter edition for those who just want to get started with courses. If you're a professional really into this, then there's a pro edition. And of course, we have the Teams edition. If you are a company or part of a team and you need all of your team really in this measurement marketing mindset and want to switch over to a measurement culture as an organization, then get the Academy for Teams. You'll see everything there. Measure.tips/getacademy to get all of those courses and training. Now, next week's topic, by the way, a Workshop Wednesday. We actually have 5 Wednesdays in the month of September, so we're going to do a bonus strategy session. So next week, we're going to talk about how to tell if your Facebook ads are really working, which I know you care about because everybody's always like, well, Facebook says this, but analytics says that. We're going to talk about why that happens and how you can figure some stuff out with Facebook ads and figure out if it's actually working or not for you. Now, to get that one, you got to make sure 2 things I want you to do. 1, subscribe to this if you haven't already. So make sure you subscribe so you're notified when the next video comes out. Secondly, if you are not yet a Measurement Marketing Academy member or a Toolbox member, so basically if you're not a member of measurementmarketing.io, at least become a Toolbox member. It is completely free. You get all of this stuff and then some. There's a ton back there. There's like 8 times as much as this back there. It's just our way of giving back to the community and helping out where we can. So you get free Workshop Wednesdays each and every week. You also get all of these different tools, the traffic tracking toolkit, so you can figure out UTMs and all that stuff. There's some more advanced stuff back there about learning regex, that thing you saw earlier in this workshop. We talk about regex if you want to learn that stuff, or if you're a strategy person about traffic story, the ACE goals, like all that stuff is back there. It's Toolbox membership, completely free. Just go to measure.tips/WW to create your free Toolbox membership. If being a part of the Measurement Marketing Academy is not quite the right time for you, that's totally cool. I understand that. Measure.tips/WW. There absolutely you should be a Toolbox member because there's so much value that is back there. And I look forward to seeing back there soon. And finally, this is time sensitive. Measure Summit is coming up. In fact, it's actually going on right now. So this is it. If you are not yet a part of Measure Summit, it's completely free to register. Completely separate thing. We're working with Measure School, measuremarketing.io, and Measure School are working together with a lot of other people to put this on. It's all measurement all the time. Measure Summit, it only happens September 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 25th. So it is literally happening right now as you are watching this. So make sure you be a part of it if you're not already, because this will be the last time we get to talk about it on a Workshop Wednesday until next year. So measuresummit.com, be sure you're on that. And with that, we'll go ahead and bring it to a close. This has been a strategy session using Google Analytics channel reports to guide your marketing strategy. Thanks again for watching. We will see you on the next workshop. Take care.